Welcome into America's Retirement Headquarters, home of the Retirement Guys Formula and America's Medicare Associates. Securities offered through Peak Brokerage Services, LLC. Advisory services offered through the Retirement Guys Formula, registered investment advisor. America's Retirement Headquarters, America's Medicare Associates, and the Retirement Guys Formula are separate and independent entities from Peak Brokerage Services, LLC. I want to welcome you into and thank you so much for joining us here on America's Retirement Headquarters. It's the home of the Retirement Guys Formula, America's Medicare Associates, and Retirement Tax Partners with Nolan Baker. 419-794-3030 is the phone number. It's 419-794-3030. Online, arhq.com. Find out more about the team. Set up a time to speak with them, the events they have going on. The website again, arhq.com. My name is Chris Swan. Today on the show, can you imagine living and working until age 120? We'll talk about the two types of investments that capture market gains and help protect against a downturn, and how to find comfort in spending in retirement. All this and more, but first let me check in. Say hello. Nolan, glad to be with you once again. How are you doing, sir?
Doing fantastic. Yeah, just getting back from a couple of day ski trip. I took my son and a couple of his friends, and my wife and I, we went up to Crystal Mountain up north, and his last kind of senior hurrah, if you will, before he's eyeing the graduation day, which will be right around the corner. And, from there, finishing up and enjoying maybe summer and going off to college. So good week out skiing, have some fun, good time spending some time on the slopes. But, of course, using some muscles I probably haven't used for a little while.
Right. The big milestones you guys are celebrating, we appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to spend here with the listeners and, guide them on the way as they get ready for, some big milestones of their own, like clocking out of work for the last time. But before that happens, there is a deadline coming up here that I think we're all aware of. And if you've been in the working world, you're certainly aware of the tax filing deadline. That is, of course, a little over a month away, April 15th. One of the people who started his career preparing other people's income taxes is Ed Slott, now considered a guru when it comes to tax planning. Here's what he told Morningstar about his early days when he was a CPA.
Every year they came in, I'd say, oh, you know what you could have done? Oh, you should have done this. Oh, you missed that. And it hit me that who wants to hear what I could have, would have, should have done? You can't go back unless you had a time machine. So I realized I was looking backwards, reactive. And that's when everything changed for me. I said, wouldn't it be more valuable if I did tax planning instead of tax preparation? And that opened up the whole world of adding value, tax planning, looking ahead.
We've spoken about this before, the difference between tax preparation, looking in the rearview mirror versus looking through the windshield, and tax planning. Can you give us some examples of the value of tax planning?
We're just seeing a tremendous amount of value with our business, the Retirement Tax Partners, and, we're preparing now federal, state, and local taxes. If you haven't got your taxes done, just keep in mind that if you are a listener, call us up, ask about our promotional special this year. You can get your 2024 taxes done for $150. So we're offering that great promotional special. You can even make your appointment time right online at retirementtaxpartners.com. But, I handle a lot of the financial planning side. Danny does the intake on taxes. And, this, again, is another area where a lot of these things overlap each other. And to me, I think there is a tremendous amount of value when it comes to tax planning. One example is somebody who recently came into the office. This lady in particular talked a little bit about how last year was her best year ever in her business. She's a couple of years off before she retires, but looking at having one of her best years ever, it really could be a good idea for her to look at, max funding a traditional IRA for last year. Now, with a traditional IRA, what ultimately you get into some maximum contributions that you can make. So it's going to immediately have a tax benefit for her if she's able to go ahead and do that for 2024. That is one of those areas where Ed Slott was talking about going back in time. You still have the opportunity, to fund traditional IRAs before April 15th or when you file your taxes. And if she's looking for, bigger tax savings ideas in the future, she might consider having some type of company-sponsored retirement plan set up for her business. She could also consider the options of doing like a SEP IRA, which would allow for higher contributions. So, one example of somebody who listened to the show, took advantage of that tax savings coupon that we have, came in, and then we were able to kind of compound the growth by talking about some other ideas to look for saving her money. We had another client that had recently come in, and unfortunately she had lost her husband last year. So she was coming in. Things are different this year. But going through and looking at her situation, through the life insurance and through some of the other proceeds she got, she really hadn't needed to take any money out of her investment accounts last year. So when Danny got with our CPA and worked on having the taxes prepared, they had noticed that because she didn't take any money out of taxable retirement accounts, she had the ability where she could have taken out up to $15,000 and used it for additional income needs. Now, if she didn't have those additional income needs, she could have taken and transferred that money over to a Roth IRA. And in the Roth IRA, that money, if it follows the rules of 5 years or longer and she's over 59 and a half, all the profits she gets from that, she stands to benefit from tax-free income for that account. So down the road, if she needs to take a larger withdrawal from her retirement account to take a dream vacation or buy a vehicle, she would have had that money in a tax-free account. Or if financially she's, well off, that she maybe is not going to need that money, and that money is going to be left to her beneficiaries, her children in this case, it's most likely that when the children inherit the tax-deferred retirement account, that account is not going to be having the same tax benefits that she could get right now, meaning that, if the kids are in the higher income earning years, they can end up paying a lot of taxes. So again, we did the what if analysis, and that's one of the things that we do. And I think what makes Retirement Tax Partners unique is doing that what if analysis, and not only talking about what are the things that, can be done this year, but what are the things that can be done in the future. We also have what is called our Retirees Tax Saver Checklist. And in the Tax Savers Checklist, had another gentleman that had heard the commercial came in. And again, going through the checklist, what we're doing is we're taking a look at things like, towards the end of the year, if you have non-retirement accounts, are you doing that analysis with your team, looking at what your capital gains and or capital losses are and doing the end of the year tax planning? Do you own the right assets in the right accounts that provide more, tax efficient benefits? Scott is talking to people about things like the health savings account if you're still working, making sure that you're maximizing those. If you're over the age 70 and a half and you're donating money to charitable causes or your church, are you doing it from your retirement account because it can be more tax favorable than just taking money out and paying taxes on it and giving the money? So all of those things are part of that tax savers checklist. We have a couple of spots left open. If you haven't got your 2024 taxes done yet, again, that Retirement Tax Partners can help you coordinate that with one of our enrolled agents or CPAs, and you can take advantage of that special, because I truly believe that there is tremendous value in tax planning. And again, we can take a look at your situation and see what we can do to help minimize the taxes that you pay this year and in the future for your family.
By no means are we saying you should, neglect that tax deadline that's coming up on April 15th. Pay your taxes if you owe them. We're not talking about tax evasion, tax avoidance here, but also prepare for the next 15, 20 years where taxes at some point almost certainly going to go up. What are you doing to minimize, if not outright eliminate, those obligations that come down the line? If the answer is nothing, well, it's a good time to have that retirement tax savers checklist done for you to show you what you can do to minimize the effect down the line. It all starts with reaching out, setting up time to speak with the team at Retirement Tax Partners as part of America's Retirement Headquarters. You can do that by giving a call, 419-794-3030, or you can reach out on the website as well. That's arhq.com. Nolan, at some point, the fear of death got eclipsed by quite frankly, the fear of living. It is the number one concern among retirees and pre-retirees, outliving their savings, because figuring out how long you're going to live when planning retirement can be kind of tough. Well, now comes a prediction from a UCLA cardiologist that within the next decade, the life expectancy for younger people will go up to age 120, thanks to advances in stem cell therapy. In any case, stats say that people are living longer overall, and that means that they'll have to probably fund a longer retirement. So for people that are getting ready they're in that retirement red zone, how do you calculate that longevity risk?
So when we're looking at longevity risk, what you're looking at is you're looking at the risk of outliving your financial resources in retirement. It can be influenced by, life expectancy, inflation, investment returns, withdrawal rates. So here's a couple of steps on how you can calculate longevity risk and a couple ideas on what you could do to help reduce or eliminate that type of risk. Number one is you kind of want to estimate what your life expectancy is. There's the Social Security life expectancy tables that are out there. But, really what I want you to do is kind of consider your personal health history, look at your family history. I have clients that come in that, they look very healthy. They are playing pickleball, have a very active lifestyle. They've got really good genes in their family that last a long time. So they probably want to have plan for a longer, life expectancy. Other people maybe have some health issues as well. But, a 65-year-old male has about a 50% chance of living to age 85 and a 25% chance to living to age 92 or longer. So that's the first step is, kind of estimating what that longevity life expectancy is. Number two is determining your retirement savings and your income needs. So when I look at it, what I think that you should do is determine the amount of money that you need to cover your minimum monthly income needs. How much does it take to run your house? Not the fun stuff. In that case, what you then want to do is you want to try to have those from reliable income sources. So if you needed $60,000 a year to cover the basic expenses to run your house, or $5,000 a month, if you're getting $4,000 a month from things like Social Security, which would be considered reliable income, it could be a combination of Social Security and maybe a pension if you're blessed enough to have that, then the gap that you have is $1,000 a month. That would help you to determine, what is the gap, what is your savings, and what is your needs. The number three thing to do is to run a Monte Carlo simulation. So, this is a probability analysis. And, for part of our retirement team action plan, when we put that together, what we're going to do is we're going to run, thousands of possible scenarios based upon the different market returns and longevity. And within this, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get it to show and develop a plan that gives us a 90+% probability of success, meaning that the likelihood is less than 10% of running out of money using that Monte Carlo simulation. If we run the Monte Carlo simulation and let's say that the probability of success is 50-50, you may not be confident about moving into retirement time with it being a coin toss. So then what we can do is start to look at different things within the planning to help you create a stronger retirement plan. Maybe that could be working a year longer. That could be spending a little bit less. That could be optimizing your investments or optimizing when you take Social Security to help you get it to that 90+% probability of success. Number four is then apply the 4% rule. I mean, that's a good rule of thumb to start with when you're thinking about, what's a safe amount to withdraw from a portfolio. It's not perfect. Again, it's a starting point. Number five is then to calculate the requirement that you need to cover any gaps. So as a minute ago, I talked about somebody who needed $5,000 a month. If they had $4,000 that were covered from Social Security and pensions, that left them about $1,000 a month is what the gap was. We can go and we can look at various financial products that will generate $1,000 a month, and we can say, how much capital is required to invest into each various vehicle to generate the $1,000 a month. And, my goal is to help people try to invest the lowest amount of capital in generating the safest amount of income that provides that $1,000 a month. And so then we look at those different choices that are out there, and that allows people to make, a better educated decision that's out there. When you're looking at longevity lists, you also want to look at factoring in things like healthcare and more specifically long-term care. So when we run this retirement team action plan for you, and we're getting you to a probability of success, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to pick on you. And I usually pick on the guy, right?
Sure.
And I'm going to show the scenario of what happens if he ends up in a nursing home for the last 2 years of his life. And Chris, what you'll see is that many times it'll take a probability of success that at one point was 90%. And if they needed a nursing home, even 2 years in a nursing home that, the cost exceed over $100,000, it could completely derail a plan. So that longevity risk, could certainly hurt that surviving spouse if a lot of those resources are used up in a long-term care spend down. So number 7 is adjust for inflation and market volatility. Just realize that the $5,000 a month that individual that I was talking about needed is going to be higher in the future. If you look at the sequence of returns, with the market being bad maybe in the next year or the market being bad right away at retirement time, that could increase your risk of failure from longevity risk. So you want to make sure that you're taking steps to mitigate major downturns in the market. And when we're looking at mitigating the longevity risk, things that you can do is, number one, is consider maybe delaying Social Security benefits to get higher lifetime payments. There are different types of insurance products that will provide lifetime income solutions to hedge that longevity risk. And number 5 is just consider some flexibility in spending. So, reducing some of those discretionary spendings when the market or the economies aren't doing well, and then spending more in those years that the markets are doing a little bit better. So a lot of different ways on how we can help you look and calculate longevity risk in your situation. So if you're that person and you're worried that, do I have enough? Am I going to make it? Am I going to run out of money? We can help put you to ease and walking through that retirement team action plan. So again, encourage you to sit down and have us run that and help you put that and check it off your list.
You can do the show by reaching out right now, 419-794-3030, or you can find out more about the team at America's Retirement Headquarters and the Retirement Team Action Plan and set up a time on the website. That is arhq.com. Often here on the show, we bring things to the table that I think the listeners and the viewers may not be aware of, but here's something that probably won't surprise them. A new study found that the average American commuter lost 43 hours of their life mired in traffic jams last year. This is one of the situations where I'm unfortunate to say I'm above average in this regard. But, your retirement portfolio may also be stuck in traffic, causing it to waste time and money. Nolan, what are some of the more common culprits that you notice, and how do you help reduce those?
Yeah, I would definitely say living here in Northwest Ohio, we are pretty blessed in the fact that we can get around anywhere in the Toledo area, usually in a pretty quick time frame versus some of the big cities like Atlanta. Retirement is a point in your life that you don't have the luxury of time to sit and have money not working hard for you. If you're not going to get up and go to work, you need to make sure that your dollars get up and go to work every single day possible. So if you want to find out if you have waste in your portfolio, again, take up that advantage of scheduling a time to get your retirement team action plan. If you go to arhq.com, right on the main page, you can see schedule that button there, a time to get your retirement team action plan. We'll take a look at it. But a couple of ideas. I had some clients that had come into the office just recently, and what we started to do is look at the amount of money that they had in various cash accounts. So they had a pretty decent balance in cash savings at the bank, and then they had a pretty large cash balance inside of their 401k plan. And I'm not opposed to having cash. I think you want to have some cash to have, peace of mind to back you up in the event that something bad happens or you lose your job early or the market has a big sell-off. But the problem is looking at their cash, this couple was earning 0.08% interest. Yeah, so, they're basically earning almost nothing on their cash accounts. Yet here we are at decade-level high interest rates. There's high interest money market accounts they can simply sweep and switch that money over to. And, in March of 2025, you've got money market accounts that can pay, up to 4%. So that is a way to immediately put money to work for clients. It's like, now that the seasons are kind of starting to change, it's still, some time to go here in Northwest Ohio, but if you go in the closet, you take that, spring coat out and you put your hand in your pocket and you find $20 in there. It's one of the best feelings ever.
Yeah.
In this example, if they take that money, between the various accounts they had, it was about $100,000 between bank savings and savings in their 401k. And they were able to take and transition it to a higher interest account, assuming the interest rates stay at 4% versus 0.08, which is what they're getting. That's $4,000 more of income just simply by putting that cash to work. So number one, if you're listening and you have a large cash balance and you're getting less than 4% interest, we should have a conversation. Number two is older annuities with excess fees for low rates. I had another gentleman that had come into the office. Unfortunately, he had lost his father about 8 years ago. And the advisor that he had met with ended up purchasing what is called a variable annuity in his situation. And it really kind of just scratched my head on why he would own a variable annuity, number one, at his age. Number two, in the fact that because it's a inherited account, he has to take money out of that account. So in this case, he's paying all of these excess fees and expenses for things that are not going to provide any benefit from him because he's forced to take money and distributions out of this account and spend that money down over a set period of time. He may be much better off looking at things that are much lower cost options that can accomplish his outcomes. So if you have an annuity and your annuity is 5 years or older, I would say it could be a good idea to dust it off and have us take a look and see if it is wasting money for you. The next category is what I would refer to as over-diversification. Had a real nice lady that had come in from the radio that had us look at her portfolio and put together that independent portfolio analysis. And, in looking at her investments, just looking at the size of her portfolio, she had, $75,000 build-up retirement account, which is nice to get started growing. She's got more years to save till she gets to retirement time. But, in looking at her investment accounts, she had just a laundry list of different funds that she owned. And it was like fund after fund after ETF after ETF. I think she literally had, thousands of different holdings if you added them all up. Talk about over diversification. So for her, what we did is we walked through the process that we have at the Retirement Guys Formula, our investment company, and, identifying companies that are cash rich, low debt, have a certain profit margin, companies that have a competitive advantage or are needed on a daily basis. We can still get her diversified, but not in thousands and thousands and thousands of company. Again, in that scenario, she's missing out on potential opportunity. Another way could be wasting money as well. We had a scenario, and I talked about this in an earlier segment, where somebody had a home equity loan, they had a mortgage, and they had credit card debt, and their advisor was not even giving them advice to take money out of their investment account to pay off those high-interest credit cards or pay off the 8% mortgage. So she's paying all these fees and expenses to have her money managed when she can eliminate the debt that she has with the market at a record level high, eliminate those management wasted fees, and eliminate the outgoing wasted fees that she's paying to the mortgage and credit card company. So if you want us to help you figure out, what are the areas that maybe you could cut and put more money back in your pocket, that's exactly what that retirement team action plan can do for you. Again, if you have more than $250,000 saved up for retirement time, we would be happy to put together a retirement team action plan for you.
All you have to do to get started is reach out, 419-794-3030. It's not just about the fees that you're paying or perhaps a market downturn, talking about the people who had as much money as they had in cash. Obviously, the accessibility for it is great, but you're missing out on some growth. And as we know, $100, $1,000, however much right now is not going to have the same buying power 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 30 years from now. So maybe finding ways to make that work harder for you. And Nolan, I want to circle back. I don't want to beat up on this lady by any means, but the lady who had so many different holdings, so many different mutual funds, when you took a deeper dive, did you find that there were a lot of redundancies in there, a lot of the same stocks in different funds?
This is another area where I think a lot of investors are going to get hurt in this type of environment. If you look at it and you think about diversification, what we think about it is many investors, in this case, who own multiple different things will think they're diversified, but they really are not. Mm-hmm. You have right now, if you look at the stock market, there's a couple things that you want to take into consideration. There's some of the same investments that are in the S&P and the NASDAQ, and so you get an overlap. Even more so when you look at the S&P 500 index, there's 7 stocks that make up a large majority of the performance of the market.
Yeah.
So as long as those 7 stocks do good, the market does good, your stock statement does good. But, I can go back in time, and I'm dating myself here because I've been in the business for over 30 years. But if you think about the tech wreck of 2000, what happened was investors in that environment thought they were diversified, but all their funds own the same technology companies. And so when the dot-com bubble burst in 2000, those investors really got hurt. I think we're in an environment like that as well. I think we're also in an environment where you have to be careful knowing what you own. If you look at some of the stats that are out there, some of the small and medium companies in the United States, it's nearly 50% of small and medium companies in the United States are not profitable. So the question there becomes, well, what happens when the market does bad and those type of companies get into trouble? So not only can you be wasting money, you can get painful lessons in this environment by not having that independent portfolio analysis completed.
You may find out in the value of the portfolio analysis that you're doing well and you should stay the course. And that would probably give you a little confidence as you enter into retirement. There's also the situation where you may find out that there's a little bit of work that needs to be done, maybe a little bit more than a little. That is not a shortcoming on your fault, but by having those conversations, you now know how to make those changes or that you should make those changes and then explore what those options are going to be. All you need to do to get started and figure out how to go about doing that is reach out, set up a time to speak with the team at America's Retirement Headquarters. You can call 419-794-3030, or you can also go to the website and reach out at arhq.com. Let's talk about clients that are already retired. Let's say one of them told you that they would love to have the kind of growth that the stock market offers, but they're afraid of losing money and the volatility that lies within the market. Is there something that you can tell them that can capture those market gains and guard against downturns and also provide income?
Yeah, I think there are some, good choices that are out there. And I think this is an area where, people should be running the fire safety drill right now with the markets at, close to record high. And really what you're trying to do is you're trying to weigh the risk versus the reward when it comes to investing, and then kind of tailoring it down to your own approach. A big part of this comes down to two things. What is your tolerance and level of comfort with risk? So if the market did have a big downturn like it did in 2008, did you make changes to your portfolio? After COVID, did you make changes to your portfolio? Because what you want to do is you want to not make changes to your portfolio after something bad happened. In essence, all you're going to do is lock in losses and not be in a situation where you can, take advantage of gains. So what you have is you have investors that will move in and out of the market, based upon that fear and greed factor. They get greedy when they see that the markets are doing good. They get greedy when they hear about crypto, or greedy when they hear about precious metals or gold. And they jump in when prices are already high. And then they get fearful when things go down and they get out of the market. So the nice thing is when you're talking about some of the things that you had mentioned there, looking at financial products that allow an investor to capture part of the market gain, yet protect them against a defined or certain amount of loss, there are really two different types of products that I think, people may want to consider looking at them. For those of you that are looking at the stock market type of portfolios, what you can consider investing into is what is called a buffer ETF. And what this is this is a type of an investment. It's an exchange-traded fund that's designed to provide the investor with a defined level of protection, or buffer as it's known, against market loss, while allowing that investor to participate into a predetermined cap on an annual basis. Now, I know I just said a mouthful. That's like Wall Street talk there. We can show you visually what it looks like. I'll give you an example. If you had a investment, what it could allow you to do is participate in what the underlying index does, and most common are like the S&P 500 index. So between now and a year from now, the S&P 500 index can only do one of three things. It could go up, it could stay the same, or it could go down.
Right.
Using a buffered ETF, what you could do is you could select a level of protection that you want. And the neat thing about that is those levels of protection are kind of customizable. So you could have a zero being worst case scenario, meaning that you don't want to have any type of downturn over the next 1 or 2 years, or whatever the time frame of that buffered ETF is. In exchange for that, it will give you a cap, and a cap is referring to, say, the maximum level that it allows you to grow. So let's say you had a 0% downside and then a 5% cap. If the market goes up and continues to go up like what it did, say in 2024 when the market was up roughly 20%, the cap would indicate that that investor would have got to pay the 5%, of course, minus any fees or expenses that they paid on the account. Or if you go back a couple of years ago, like in 2022 when the stock market was negative, if the market's down 20%, if that investor selected a 0% downside, then of course their account is zero. Some people want to have higher growth potential. So let's say that you wanted to have just the first 15% of losses protected. The trade-off of that is then you're going to end up with a higher cap rate. So maybe you get a 7, 8, 9, 10% cap rate in exchange for the first 15% being protected. Again, in that example, let's say the market's down 10, that particular investor is down nothing because of a market decline. Now, the stock market, you still got to take into consideration management fees and expenses.
Of course.
But if the market's down, say, 20%, then the first 15% is protected. They're only down 5. So it helps them, have the ability to stay invested, not make those emotional decisions of trying to figure out when to get in and out of the market with having a determined level of protection. The insurance companies of America have also been doing this for decades as well, and they offer products that are called a fixed index annuity. So with a fixed index annuity, first and foremost, what you're usually doing is you're buying complete protection against loss, meaning that 0 is worst case scenario. The other thing that I like about them is that on a lock-in basis, normally once a year, if an investor has gained in the account, the insurance company is making the deposit into the account owner, and that becomes their new starting point. So think of it like stair steps, right? You can only go up and never go down, utilizing the fixed index annuity concept that allows you to participate when the market goes up. Now, annuities can be confusing. In this case, you could have a cap, which would be, again, a maximum level of gain during that predetermined period. Most commonly, those products are 1-year caps, but there are variations that are out there. Some are referred to as participation rates. So if you had a 50% participation rate, that would indicate that you would get half of the return of whatever that underlying index is. So if the index goes up 10%, 50% of that would be a 5% rate of return. But again, giving you that growth potential and helping you, guard against the downside and protect you as well. Some of the insurance companies of America also offer income riders or income options. So if you wanted to have the protection, but you also wanted to have some income as well, those type of products are available on some of the insurance investments as well. So all different ways. If you're weighing the risk versus reward of investing, again, I don't want you to make an emotional decision. While the economy is good, now's the time to have a conversation with us at America's Retirement Headquarters and determine, how can we help you be able to participate, when the market does good, but be able to have some downside protection. And you've got a couple different choices that we can walk you through what your options are so you can make an educated decision what's right for you.
Finding that right blend, it's going to vary from person to person, and that is where having a customized plan, a customized retirement team action plan really comes into play to, have it be catered to your circumstances, what you want to achieve. All you need to do to get started, set up a time to speak with America's Retirement Headquarters. You can do that by going to arhq.com or give a call, 419-794-3030. Once again, that number, 419-794-3030. And as always, I want to thank you for joining us here on America's Retirement Headquarters. It is the home of the Retirement Guys formula, America's Medicare Associates, and retirement tax partners. Hope you have a great week ahead of you. Nolan, as always, appreciate you taking the time to spend with the listeners and viewers. And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final word.
Yeah, I hope, Chris, you have a great rest of your weekend. Have a great week. Hope all of our listeners do the same as well. And just remember, when you think retirement, think America's Retirement Headquarters. We're here for your entire retirement.
America's Retirement Headquarters is located at 1700 Woodlands Drive in Maumee, Ohio. You can reach them by calling 419-794-3030 or online at americasretirementheadquarters.com. Exposure to ideas and financial vehicles discussed should not be considered investment advice or recommendation to buy or sell any financial vehicle. Investments can fluctuate and when redeemed may be worth more or less than when originally invested. Nolan Baker is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency and does not provide legal or tax advice. Please consult with your attorney, accountant, and or tax advisor for advice concerning your particular circumstance. Annuity guarantees rely solely on the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through Nolan Baker, Ohio Insurance License Number 27787.